On a cold night in 1912, RMS Titanic struck an iceberg and slipped beneath the waves into the middle of the North Atlantic. Now, on a night where the immersion in the water, the icy water, was a death sentence, the words people lived and died by were women and children first. Now, on a not-so-cold night in 2012, the cruise ship Costa Concordia struck a rock about a football field's length from shore. On a night where immersion in that water meant infinitely better chances of survival, the words people lived and died by were, "Get out of my way." My friends Steve Green and Scott Ott join me now from Colorado and Pennsylvania. Gentlemen, in the century since the Titanic went down, progressives have wrought incalculable changes on our society. Steve, in the morning hours of April 16, 1912, people in London and New York were able to reconcile themselves to the unimaginable horror of that evening with what I think is the greatest example of civilized heroism in human history. That's why the Titanic rings such a bell with us. We didn't get that same sense in the morning after the Costa Concordia ran aground, did we? So what changed, Steve, since then?
Let me preface this by saying that in a very limited sense, men are dispensable. If it comes down to the survival of the species, one healthy man can take care of a lot of women. Maybe not very well, but he can get the job done to continue the species. But to have a society, men are indispensable. But you know what? Society, it doesn't treat us that way anymore. The welfare state says we aren't needed to take care of families. Modern divorce laws can cost us our families on a whim, literally. Male, masculine characteristics are supposed to be points of shame now. Mm-hmm. And so we end up with men who behave accordingly. They're boys, really. They dress and they act like children their entire lives. And when push comes to shove, like it did on the ship, apparently push really did come to shove. It's shameful, but I guess you reap what you sow.
It's shameful. I want to come back to that in a minute. Scott, we three are all about equal opportunities and equal pay for women, but I know you two well enough to say that we three would also live and die by the credo, women and children first, if it ever came to that. So what's the difference between equal pay and unequal seating at a lifeboat in icy waters?
Well, there's fairness and justice in how you treat people, and you treat people of equal skills with equal rewards. There's no question about that, although there used to be a question about that. But there's something different going on here, and I think I want to piggyback on what Steve said. There was also at that time, 100 years ago, a greater sense of our accountability for our life in the eyes of God. And I think the progressive movement has taken away a lot of that as well. When you know that you're going to have to stand before your Maker and give an accounting of the life that you led, you're much less likely to push a pregnant woman out of the way so you can jump into the lifeboat, and you're more willing to trust yourself to the grace of God, even if that means your own death. I think we've lost that, and the man, as the protector of women and children, to lose that means to lose society itself.
Yeah, as we're finding out daily. Gents, in the many moments of shame that surround the Costa Concordia disaster, we have yet again, because this kind of thing's happened before and recently, the spectacle of the captain being one of the first off the ship and then being ordered back onto his command by irate members, in this case, of the Italian Coast Guard. More than one commentator has been reminded of this famous scene from the show Seinfeld. That's one of the greatest moments in TV comedy, but it's not so funny when your life and your family's lives are in the hands of the man knocking kids and old ladies down to get out the door. When the Titanic went down, Captain Smith, the man responsible for charging her through an ice field at full speed, stayed on a ship until it sank beneath her. His sense of duty was motivated by his sense of shame. The owner of the Titanic, Bruce Ismay, let his will to live overcome his sense of shame and took a seat in a lifeboat that might have saved the life of a woman or child that perished in those icy waters. And for that, he lived in misery and disgrace for the rest of his life. And I'm convinced there was not a night when he did not regret his choice. So, Steve, progressives tell us that shame is bad. I don't think shame is bad. I think shame is the essential component of civilized behavior. We didn't see a lot of shame on this most recent case, did we?
No, we sure saw a lot of shameful behavior, though. One is what prevents the other. And you know, I think I have a clue where it went, because when you brought this up on the phone yesterday, I thought immediately of the master, Robert Heinlein, a little something from the Notebooks of Lazarus Long that I'm going to read you. He said, whenever women have insisted on absolute equality with men, they have invariably wound up with the dirty end of the stick. What they are and what they do makes them superior to men. And their proper tactic is to demand special privileges all the traffic will bear. They should never settle merely for equality. For women, equality is disaster.
Well, there you go. Steve Green can be read at vodkapundit.com. Scott, you have both sons and daughters. Do you worry that this flood, actually this torrent of action movies showing 90-pound women like Scarlett Johansson routinely beating the crap out of 250-pound security guards, not only gives girls a dangerously false sense of their physical strength relative to men, but also de-inhibits this women and children first response that is inculcated in men in order to protect the weak and the vulnerable?
It's happening everywhere, and it's amazing how many movies that I've seen where there's always this twist at the end where, in effect, the woman winds up rescuing the man. And it happens over and over, and every time I see it, there was a great movie, I can't remember, it was a Disney movie, it may have been called Enchanted or something like that, where that twist happened at the end, and it was the woman falling into the or the man falling into the arms of the rescuing woman. You know, there was one case in this shipwreck, though, that we should point out. There was a guy named Francine Servel, a Frenchman, who was 71 years old. He gave his life jacket to his 61-year-old wife and coaxed her to jump into the water when she wouldn't leave the ship. And he said, "Don't worry, I'm going to be fine." And that's the last she saw of him. He saved her life, sacrificially giving up his own.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, if the man was 71 years old, I had no doubt he did it. What if he was 17 years old? Would he have done it? He's closer to the Titanic than he is to the Concordia in terms of when he was born. This is something to be really worried about. You can catch Scott Ott's remarkable Freedoms Charter right here at PJTV. My friends, the difference between the events on the nights of 1912 and 2012 are the reason I'm a conservative. When women were deprived of the right to vote and did not get equal pay for equal work, I would be a liberal. But when I'm told that they are as fast and as strong as men and need no protection from unprincipled, cowardly men, then I become a conservative. Morality and manhood, for that matter, consists of doing the right thing over the smart thing. Women and children first is the essence of civilization, and I say this only to the radical feminists out there who think that they can destroy that sense of honor and obligation in men at cocktail parties in Manhattan, only to call it up when the ship is going down. It doesn't work that way. You destroy that magnificent sense of self-sacrifice at your peril, and your peril does not always come at night on a dark sea. It may come in an alleyway or a parking structure, and when it does, you had better hope to God that your screams for help are answered by men who have been above the reach of your political message. For the entire Trifecta team, I'm Bill Whittle.